All right, hey guys, sitting here Saturday afternoon on November 11th. It seems like a good day to take a look at Bitcoin Cash. That is certainly making its presence felt here. This has just been an incredible move over the last few days. You can see here now we're pushing up to 21 billion in market cap, up another 26% today. This is against the U.S. dollar, and then against Bitcoin, of course, we're sitting here also number 2, as you might expect, but up 30% today against Bitcoin. So in the where's the volume? Okay, so we got a whole lot of volume coming into Bitcoin Cash, and we look at the dollar again. Where's the volume? Bitcoin Cash. So not a bad day to take a look at it. Now this is a trade that we did catch this in amongst my members, and I'm going to try and recreate it for you best I can. It's kind of hard to do it with TradingView because you can't block the data on the side. But I'm going to try and do it. So it was not, it was not terribly difficult to get into the trade because of the setup was there. It was a little tricky on the 4th, so you had to have some Elliott knowledge to know what to look for there. But so of course, entering a trade like that, you have absolutely no idea how, that it's going to do what it did, right? So it's more just a matter of, is the setup there? Is it valid? Does it make sense? And then the fact that we get this massive explosion, that's why we're in crypto, right? To see that kind of volatility. So, but let's take a look at it and see if I can show you why we were looking to get long. So I'm trying to hide the right edge of the market here, just to show you what we were looking at when we were talking about it. So just going back, if I can get my tool to work here, just looking at it here. So we had this move here. So here's the typical algo trading. So from swing high to low, we came up, we wicked the 50, and down we go. We go to and through the negative 23. So profit targets have been hit, but then you would draw it again from the next pivot. Now here we go in between the 50 and the 618, and that doesn't make its target. Doesn't make it. And we start to get signs, and I'm doing the best I can to recreate it here. We start to get signs that perhaps we're starting to turn. Now let me take some of this off. When we get this action here. So here's the first push into the Vegas wave. It's rejected. Then we get a push up. Now we're to and through, right? So now we're on the other side of that resistance, of this longer term downtrend. So perhaps we've got something meaningful there. And I'm going to show you what we did in terms of how we were getting a handle on where the resistance was. So once you're making that kind of move, well, you have to check all the way halfway back. So looking from swing high to low, if we go over to the right here, and you're just going to see what's, because we all know what's coming. But note here how on this move, this impulsive move we get, it goes right to the 618 from the swing high to low. Right to it, and that's where you find the resistance, as you would expect to find the resistance. So it was fairly reasonable for us to look at that and say, okay, well, potentially we've got a 1, 2, 3. That's impulsive there, and we're looking for a 4th wave to look for entry into the 5th with a break through the 618. Perhaps we've got something new started. So here was I guess I'll take this off now so I can try and recreate it. So we get this little 1, 2, and then I'm going to go to the hourly so you can see it a little bit better. Let me auto it. All right, trying to keep that off to the side because here's what we were looking at. So here was that low, and we had this action, which can you carve out a clean 5 wave? You're stretching to make that work. You've got a low, you've got a swing high, but you do get a nice ABC down here, and then we just kind of consolidate. So I started using this swing low, but because this was a higher low than this was the best count I could come up with. But then as we start to move here, now we do get some fairly decent subdivision. But notice what happens here. We get this little 1, a shallow 2, then we get the little spike up here on the 3rd, and then we go into a pattern that we've been seeing across crypto for the last couple of months. We've seen it in Bitcoin. we've seen it in a lot of the major coins where we're seeing shallow force. So we're not getting traditional ABC where you're getting the C wave at 100% of the A wave. That's if you've been trading it over the last 4 or 5 months, this has been a recurring pattern, and we've seen it. So it's the kind of thing that you now know to be looking for. So we get, if I open it up here, we get the little ABC. So we have our A wave. Then we get a little 3 wave into a B. But let me blow it up here so I can show you this. So here's the ABC. So if I put this on it, so we get the little ABC here. Now I'm going to take the wave off of that. So now you're looking at that thinking, okay, well, potentially the 4 is in because I've got a nice little ABC. But then I get a 3 wave that rolls over. So how would you know? I mean, so of course, right, you say, well, the benefit of hindsight, Sam, right? This is easy. Well, it was... There were certainly tells here because if that had been the completion, if this had been the 4th, well, you'd have expected this to go impulsive. So we would have expected a 1, a 2, and this would start to go into a 3, come back, and the wave 1 hold. Because, we could have had a diagonal. But when we go 1, 2, 3, and then we come back down again, then the higher probability is that this is now just another B wave. So I'm moving this over here. So now it looked like we had this. So we had an A wave, a B wave, and we're coming down into a shallow C, which ends up being almost a triple bottom down here. But if you measure that, so now I'm taking my A wave from my B wave, and it's shallow. We don't even make the the 618 of the A wave. But so let me bring it back here. So we did not catch that. Did not catch that. I think we were trying to be buyers down here at the 618. You had the wave 1 high here. You had all the ingredients there, but it was just a very shallow 4th. And then it starts to rip. Okay, so let me bring it back to scale so we can get a handle on it. So if you're just looking here, you're thinking, holy shit, this thing has just completely screamed higher. But really, all you've done now, remember that we topped there at the 618 relative to the swing high. So we had an interesting spot here where it appeared that we had completed this 5 wave sequence with an extended 5th, right? So we've got our 1, here's the big 3, and then we get an extension in the 5th to complete. Remember, it's waves within waves that completes the 3rd. Right, so we get an impulsive structure to complete the 3rd wave. So we've got a 1, 2, and a 3 in. We're trying to catch the 4. We're trying to catch the 5. So again, I'm trying to hide this so that I can make the case as to why, as a trader, this was there. So we come down here now. We get a little ABC. So again, you're thinking, oh well, could that be it? Could this be my 4 over here? And if that's the case, then I'm going to expect this to go impulsive, or at least into a 5 wave sequence, because we can finish with a diagonal. But we don't get it. We get chop, which would imply that you're in some sort of a 4th here. So because we had been seeing this pattern over and over again of these truncated C waves, and we had this congestion here, we had drawn it up as an A, just as we had back here. So we get a 3 wave A, then we get some, kind of an ugly 3 wave B, and then we get this spike. So I did the exact same thing. So I'm looking for the high probability relationships. So I'm pulling from my A wave, projecting from my B, and we go just a tick or two from the 618. So we had just drawn the triangle there, saying, this is very typical in a 4th wave that you get this kind of complexity. We had relatively simple here, so you can make the case that you've got rule of alternation here, simple into complex. It's certainly more complex than this one, but all we did was just draw a down-sloping trend line on it from here to here. And I said, well, excuse me, if this breaks, we could be off for our 5th. Well, to say the least, excuse me a sec. We got our 5th, right? So you think, oh, okay, well that now going back to it, but that's exactly how we isolated that trade. It was not, Elliott aside, you could have just drawn, there's an ascending triangle. Well, you break the trend line, good chance you're going up. Now, add to that where we thought we were in the count, and this made sense as a fourth. So this ends up being the fourth, and we're buyers here off of the 618. Pardon me. The setup was at the 618. What we were looking for was the break of the trend line. So we get that, and then some of the members got different spots. When we started to break, it looked like we were off the races. So here's the first target here. Right, so there's the negative 23. Even though we had a shallow 4, we still have the negative 23 off of the pull from the 2 to the 3, and we go in between the 23.6 and the 38. So it's a shallow 4. I mean, tricky. It wasn't an obvious one. Now we of course had no idea where that was going. No idea. So in fact, here was where we took profit on it, not knowing that this was coming, because this is an extreme. So this was the negative 100%. So you can see we thought we had the 5 in, yet it had more to go. So now looking at that, to try and put it in some kind of perspective, I mean, so you'd have to call this now, sorry, Saturdays. Clear my throat. Okay, so let me take this off. So now we can look at that and say, okay, well, all of this now is no longer relevant, and we're at such a dramatic scale that you really have to go, out to, so 8 hours where I'll typically go and say, okay, so that, do you relabel it, right? So if you just did something simple like look at your Elliott wave indicator here, the oscillator here, so you're pinned here. So this is now some sort of a 3 wave. So how we come back and label it, I suppose you'd have to have that as your 1 and this be our 2. So we'd change some of this count, right? So now we have to push this over and say, okay, if this is a 3, we're going up here, so clearly that's the impulse. Well, the 4's coming. This is no longer really relevant down here because the scale has changed so dramatically. So let's pull this off. So we'd call this the 1, this the 2. Here's our 3. So it would look like this. So we just where the 1 is doesn't matter as much. So there's that. There's our 3. Some sort of a 4 coming in. So all of that would imply that higher prices are to come. So let me pull this off, and as it relates to what's next. Well, we've got a nice wave 1 high here we can work from. So that's a pivot that we pay attention to. Here's our 3. So keeping it relatively simple, we would just pull from our 2 down here up to the 3. Well, if we're going to get a 4, we're looking for it somewhere between the 38 and the 50. But now that we're on an 8 hour, we'd be looking for some subdivision to give us an ABC, right? Remembering that we've had some complexity here, and in a very strong bullish market, that C, they're impatient. They just want to buy it. So you don't get the traditional C below the A wave, and that's been the case as I've said throughout the last 3-4 months, pre-pump, if you will, before the launch. So that's something to be looking for. If you see that kind of setup, then just a break of a trend line can be a trigger to get into it. Now, from here, the temptation is to take the first pullback, and I would tell you that's typically a mistake. Let that subdivide. First pullback's going to be the A, or as we saw back down here. Right. First pullback's the A. Look for a 3 wave in the B. If you get it, then as a C is coming. But don't be surprised if you get that, because that has been the pattern over the last couple of months. So you got to know to look for that. So look for that relationship between the A wave projected from the B, but know that in a strong bull market like this, that you can very often end up with a C like that. And it would be the similar kind of thing where you could just draw some trend lines on it. So so you draw one there, and I'm just kind of freestyling here, not really to scale, but just something like that, right? We've seen it over and over again. So look for that potentially to play. You want to have it happening in the context of your high probability fib range, but that would not surprise me at all. So something to watch for. Now, how am I doing on time? Okay, that's 14. Okay, let me at least try and cover it in Bitcoin as well. So in Bitcoin, I mean, you gotta get the ICO. You got to get that off the screen. It doesn't help us at all. So, it's very similar here, right? So we had, now looking back at it here, so you have to call this is a daily, so we have to call this a 3. We can carve out our, let me go down to an 8 hour, you can see it a little bit better. So we did have this nice 5-wave subdivision. I won't take you through it all, just as we did with the Bitcoin cash to the dollar. But you can see, okay, we get a nice 5-wave 1. Here's a shallow 2. We've got some swing pivots to play with. Well, now here's the 1 high. We're way the hell up here. So what's the expectation? Well, it's the same kind of thing. We're looking for subdivision to set up for a 4th, and we want it to be at a zone where we have higher probability, so we'd pull low to high. We don't know that that's the absolute high, but on this scale, let's go to the 4 hour. All right, so there's your 1, 2. Typically you're going to be between the 38 and the 50, but take note of this here. We've got this nice little pivot there. So actually now if I was subdividing here, I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to complete the 3. This being your 3 high, that being the 4. So actually if I take it to the 1 hour, you can see this. So remember, this is just a good example of it's waves within waves. So you get a 1, 2, here's your 3, here's the 4. So if we look back at what happened here, if that was your 3 high, we came right to the 50. Yeah, actually that's just a great example, right? So from our 2 low, right? This, we didn't know we had where we were going there. This becomes the 4 of this move. Now this move is complete, so we've got our 5th in over here. I can't even see the 5th; it's so high. But you get the idea. So we had our 1, 2. Here was the 3. We came to the 50 to the tick, and then screamed up to and through the negative 23, and we got the negative 618. So there's your 5. So relabeling this now is a complete count. Now we're looking for the 4, and this now gets pulled from this high. But we have kind of an interesting pivot here to look for. So it wouldn't surprise me if we saw, if we can get the subdivision down here for an A wave here, then look for a B, and the perfect place to be buying it, right? This is where the algos buy it, is right at the 50. So that's the one to be watching for if we get this kind of subdivision, which I would be very surprised if we didn't get. All right, so interesting times to be crypto traders. Just amazing reward, but you got to know when to be there, and it's not that complicated. The key to it is consistency. The same approach repeated over and over and over again will serve you well. Take my word from it. 20 years of doing this. Trust me on that one. All right, guys, I'll wrap it there.
Thank you.